So they really work, and we really work to tell some really amazing inclusive stories. And they teach their youth how to tell inclusive stories, as well as, that, their stories matter and should be told. So really awesome to be able to be here and have the experience to work with such amazing people. So let's just go ahead and give it like 30 more seconds, and then we'll go ahead and get started here. And I guess meanwhile, I'll go ahead and give some shout outs to some people who we are kind of working with. So the first shout out is going to go out to tomorrow's Black Joy Digital Art Group, as well as Dobie and Nuri Collective. We're actually going to be donating any donations from any of the RSVPs over to Nuri Collective. They are a Bay Area-based Black grassroots collective. But yeah, you know what? Why don't we go ahead and get started? First, I'll go ahead and introduce some of our panelists. So thank you all so much for coming. We'll go ahead and start with Jesse. Jesse Santos is an experienced video editor based out of San Francisco. He's currently working in the advertising industry. As Sister Studio, he is currently an assistant content creator. He has many opportunities to work on a variety of projects for clients like Uber, Alaskan Airlines, Miller Coors, and Jose Cuervos. His passion for storytelling has led him to pursue different mediums as a form of expression, from screen printing to illustration. Jesse is eager to expand his knowledge and skill set, even more as he progresses through the early stages of his career. He hopes to serve as a resource for those who are considering a career in the video advertising industries that did not go into, a film school or portfolio school. One of Jesse's greater goals is to become a contributor in diversifying the creative industry while empowering young creatives of color to pursue a career in any field of their choice. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Jesse, and then he can go ahead and introduce himself as well.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. As Jordan mentioned, I'm Jesse Santos. My preferred pronouns are he, him, and his. And I'm excited to kind of share my journey so far, from the beginning at interning at BAYCAT up to where I am now, 1 year as an assistant editor at Sister Studios. But thank you, Jordan, for hosting this.
Of course, we're so happy to have you here. Awesome. So our next panelist is Maha. Maha, would you mind pronouncing your last name? I just want to make sure that I'm saying everything correctly.
Yeah, Mahalia Rosario.
Mahalia Rosario is was a BAYCAT intern during spring 2018 cohort, and she is now the development and production coordinator at Array Filmworks, which is a dream come true for her. And she majored in communication studies and minored in African studies at San Francisco State University. Go Gators. Just before graduating, she was accepted into the inaugural Evolve Entertainment Fund, an initiative founded by Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti and director Ava DuVary to provide young access resources into the show business. In 2018, she was offered a position with anonymous content at their activism intern. After 4 months, she narrowed down her interest to film and television development and landed a position as a development intern with Hello Sunshine, Reese Witherspoon, anchored media brand dedicated to female authorship across all storytelling platforms. She then served as an executive assistant at the Walt Disney Company in marketing partnerships in 2019. Pretty awesome. So yeah, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as well, Maha?
Cool. Hey guys, I'm Mahalia. I also go by Maha. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I currently work at Array Filmworks as their development and production coordinator. and I was a spring 2018 intern at BAYCAT.
Awesome. Well, I'm super happy that you've been able to join us here. And our next alumni panelist is going to be Jocelyn Carissa. With roots in the multimedia journalism, Jocelyn began her freelance career by telling stories that focused on the experiences of Latinx diaspora in the Bay Area and beyond. After graduating from SF State's journalism program, she now works as an assistant editor for one of the biggest advertising agencies on the West Coast, Goodby, Silverstein, and Partners. As a Mexican American, she uses her platform to evaluate marginalized voices to promote diversity in a predominantly white industry. It's pretty awesome. I'm really excited that you're here. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Jocelyn Carissa. Most people call me Joyce. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I'm BAYCAT alumni from spring 2018. And I'm excited to be here. And thank you for hosting, Jordan.
Of course, of course. Awesome. And then last but not least, by any means, we have Samson. Samson is a production coordinator at Winan and Kennedy, Portland. He was born in Asmara, and he grew up in South San Diego. For the past 10 months, he's been working on the Nike account at W&H. Outside of work, he's extremely passionate about screenwriting, design, and the resurgence of analog film. So it's pretty awesome. And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
Hey everyone, I'm Samson Salam. I'm a production coordinator at Winan and Kennedy. I am he, him, his. Those are my pronouns. And yeah, super excited to be here. I was a BAYCAT studio intern last year, so spring 2019. So super excited to talk to you guys, and thank you for the intro, Jordan.
Of course, of course. So I'm sure everyone here is just super ready to hear some Q&A questions. So since we had some folks RSVP, we're going to go ahead and start off with some questions that were specifically asked from some of our viewers. So feel free, anyone who's comfortable with answering these questions, go ahead and chime in. So our first question is from Veranda. And their question was, what do you wish you had known when joining BAYCAT creative media?
I'll jump in if that's fine. I think one thing that's like BAYCAT is a very like special collective, but once you leave, you kind of understand how unique it is. It's a space where there's a lot of similar-minded people, especially within creativity, but there's a lot of people that want to speak about the voices that have been unheard. So having that environment is like an incubator program, but we don't know everyone's story, but we're willing to listen. Like I feel like if I knew that from the jump and knew that other studio interns were coming from these backgrounds, and I just think like you could ideate so much with people and learn so much about different groups that you never knew about. And I think that was one thing that was kind of like told to me, but once you like really believe it as you walk in, I think it's a game changer. So that'd be.
Yeah, and adding on to what Samson said, I think one thing I wish I had known was that, you know, it's a very unique experience where you get to work with so many diverse people with different backgrounds, and it's really unique and special. One thing I would have wished I'd known is that like that's probably the most diverse of a job I'd ever have, like working with so many like-minded individuals. But I guess it's definitely up to us to like create those environments similar to what BAYCAT has to offer in our, you know, future careers.
Yeah, I agree as well. It's like a very unique incubator. I think they cultivate this very safe space that I feel like there are other programs out there that you have to feel like you have all the work done, you have your complete creative vision put together, and they truly just like allow you to come as you are. And it's honestly, it's like as long as you have confidence in yourself, right? They will fuel that drive within you and like support you through the process, which I think is, something really powerful and says a lot about how much they care for their interns and everyone in the program and in the company. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think like one thing that was constantly mentioned to us when our cohort was like BAYCAT spoils us a lot, and in the way that how they care about us and how they listen to our creativity and what we want to do, because like especially now working for like an agency, you don't really get that as much as BAYCAT does give you that opportunity to kind of be like, hey, like I want to create this, like who's down to do this with me? And everyone will chime in and play their part, and BAYCAT definitely spoils us in that. And it's like a really nice experience to actually be heard and to share your story or to be able to make content that you believe in.
Yeah, I really liked everything that you all had to say. It's kind of funny because 2 years ago it seems like the internship's actually very similar. I definitely completely relate to everything you're saying right now. Now being in the shoes that you guys were a couple years ago, so that's really awesome. So our next question is going to be, what kind of drives you all to kind of keep focused? And this is a question from Jenny Chow.
I'll answer this. See, focus is really hard. For me, I'm like someone easily distracted, idea after idea after idea. And so I think like the most tangible way for me to truly like create a plan and like focus and actually execute is like I make a ton of lists. I'm someone who, if I don't write it down, it's not going to get done. And so it's kind of like as simple as that, where I'm like, all right, I see it on paper. This is what I have to do. And I get that like instant gratification of like, crossing it off my list. Even if it's an ongoing project, I'm like, cool, I wrote for 30 minutes. Cool. I researched for an hour. Things like that, or I edited. So, yeah.
I think one thing that drives me as well is as far as like pursuing a career in this industry is knowing that it's up to us to really tell our stories and work together to tell our own narratives and not allowing someone else to profit off of our own stories.
I think something that drives me is like, I guess being in these spaces a lot of times, like you are sometimes the only person of color or the only woman in the room, and you want to speak out for you want to be that voice to speak out for things that you believe in that might be wrong, or someone might have a different idea that you're like, hey, like kind of like check them on it and be like, hey, we shouldn't do that because like it's not like, if it's making me feel uncomfortable, then maybe like it might make someone else feel uncomfortable, because in the end, like it's not just going to affect like people within that room, but it can affect your client, it can affect your company, and could affect your coworkers, it can affect your work. And I think like that's what kind of drives me in being in these spaces and being able to focus and to be like, okay, like I need to do this work because like this means something to me.
Yeah, to jump off that, I think similar. I feel there's a lot of people that paid it forward, especially being like working in an ad agency. I'm not the first Black man to work at an ad agency. There's so many before me, and I feel there's there's more power to your voice. So I think something that drives me is like curiosity. That's it. Like I always ask questions, and it gets uncomfortable if people don't have those answers. And I'm here to have those uncomfortable conversations, you know. As people mentioned on this call, sometimes we're the only folks in the room. People have made a lot of mistakes because they didn't have that person in the room. So it'd be a shame that I'm that person in the room that lets that mistake goes through. Also in the same light too, I feel like there shouldn't be a pressure to speak as if you're the one voice for all these people. And kind of what's driven me has given me so many answers, just being curious, always asking questions, always asking why, questioning things. It gives you clarity because, you know, it's just because things are the way they are doesn't mean you can't question them. So I think that constant searching for an answer always like keeps me moving. Like I have to like keep pushing and keep going because there's another answer elsewhere. And if you're not gonna give me the answer, I'm gonna go around you and look for the answer. So I think that's like a big thing on my end.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I love everything that you guys have said. I like that what drives you all is something that comes from like a deep passion with like within like your hearts and like your experience. And I think a lot of folks can kind of relate to that as well, especially, you know, going into the creative industry. I know I do at least. But yeah, thank you for that. So I guess my next question here is going to be from Jennifer Chu. What are some of the ways in which being a part of BAYCAT has impacted you professionally, but also on a personal level as well?
I can start this one off. I think one of the greatest impacts of BAYCAT on me personally and professionally is the amount of confidence that was instilled with me during my internship. That like when you're in that internship, every single person there is like rooting for you and like the best hype person that you can think of. Like shout out to Genevieve because she literally like, you know, she helped me with the elevator pitch, but not only just that, she just helped me, you know, feel confident and like proud of the work that I do. So definitely for me, it's like confidence and like that confidence to know that you are worthy of your work and of these opportunities.
I'm gonna just jump into that and shout out Genevieve too, because I think like her conversations with me and BAYCAT outside of just, you know, outside of the professional sense, kind of like is the reason why, you know, like big kudos, like a lot of people help me in this journey, but her in particular, she just, it takes a long time just like in life to like sound like yourself, you know? So like she helped me be myself in a room. Like I knew every day in BAYCAT, like I'm walking in as Samson. And if someone doesn't like that, it's none of my business. So when I left BAYCAT, when I went to any any approach with professional or just life, I knew if I'm myself and I get the job based off being myself, I'll be way more comfortable because I'm me at the place I want to be. I'm not putting up a front, acting like someone I'm not. And she kind of instilled that in me through stepping away from the work, you know, like taking breaths and just realizing the space you're in, and it's okay to be yourself and it's okay to think about things critically. So yeah, I would say like that's one of the things in BAYCAT that's like by far exceeds everything. It takes a while for people to sound like themselves and walk into a room and be themselves. In BAYCAT, we get this, we're so spoiled. We get the speed pass where you get to come into work and people look just like you. They have different thoughts, but it's not a judgmental zone. So you could be yourself and it stays with you if you're true to it. So yeah, big shout out Genevieve. Hopefully you're watching.
Yes, big shout out Genevieve. Also a few others, but I'm like, there's a whole list. Yeah, BAYCAT, honestly, they are just incredibly supportive. And I agree with Jesse and Samson. You walk in and you know it's a safe space. You know, this is the right fit of environment for you. This is exactly how you want your future companies to operate and look like, and how you see yourself in every company thereafter. And so it was, yeah, I mean, they instilled a lot of confidence, but they also instilled like self-worth at the same time. There was this like understanding of like, you are brilliant, you have a lot to offer and contribute to this world. All you really need to do is like put in a bit of effort and like identify like what it is that you enjoy doing and like pursuing that. And so and like there will always be an advocate somewhere, right? So at BAYCAT, everyone was rooting for you, and it was like, you know, granted, maybe at your next place not everyone's rooting for you in the same way BAYCAT did, but there will be that one person to support you in that new place, and if not, they're still at BAYCAT. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think like BAYCAT kind of form like a sense of community at least. Because I mean like there's so many people that you meet that want to get into the media business, you know, who want to be filmmakers, editors, like creatives, like even like designers, you know, and like it's kind of nice to be able to share the ideas and exchange ideas and eventually start working with each other, you know? Like I've bumped into like some people from my cohort like working, and it's nice because you're like, "Oh, hey, like we made it. Like remember when we're in that room like editing or filming that like at that for that nonprofit or something." Like it's always nice to kind of like see how everyone's doing and progressing, you know, because like it's hard because you also want to, and it's nice also because like BAYCAT also stands for like trying to inspire other people and inspire the next generation of creatives. And I think that's what I love about BAYCAT is that not only are they helping us, but we want to be that inspiration to all those other like their high school students or their middle school students who want to be in these careers. And I think that's something that's really important, like to me, that I feel like BAYCAT really does, and not just like helping us make it, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I know I definitely agree with you guys on every single level of that. And I'm glad to say that nothing has changed. It's all exactly the same love, same community. And it's amazing. And I'm glad you guys also think it's amazing. Um, and so I guess this kind of goes in hand with all the other questions that we kind of asked as well today, but this one's from Peter. And they asked, what was the most valuable thing about your experience at BAYCAT?
Bet on yourself. Maha kind of mentioned it. It was like this, like I'm worthy kind of feeling. And in BAYCAT, the most valuable thing is like, you are amazing. If someone doesn't notice it, it is their fault. And that's just it, you know? Like, it's such a valuable thing if you build it early in your career because you have this confidence of, I could go anywhere, you know, you don't feel as restrained. And then the next thing is you're so much more like open-minded. Like you get to set an example. And I think what's great going through the studio program is like you know what is a safe space for multiple individuals from different walks of life. So you walk with that same integrity and principle. So when you're educating someone that didn't have the space, it's way easier. You were comfortable, you were in the spot, you knew how it went. So those two things I would say are the most impactful for me.
Yeah, I would adding on to that and to what Jocelyn mentioned earlier, like seeing the way that everyone at BAYCAT on the studio team, how they work together, and how they also are willing to teach us and mentor us. I think that's something that like I really value, and I look forward to doing so once I'm further in my career and starting now, like finding out ways on how to um, continue to do amazing work, but also like offer your mentorship and your insight to other young people who are trying to get into this field.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. All right. So I guess the last question, and this will kind of help us kind of guide into more of the career-oriented questions. How has BAYCAT helped you to reach your goals? And this one's from Karen Barton.
I'll start. I mean, there's so many, like, I think there's like multiple paths of how they've like really streamlined and like helped us. And for me, it was like listening, 1, 2, pushing me, 3, mentorship. There, like, I don't know, there were like so many instances where like we had opportunities to like attend networking events. And like, although I wasn't like in particularly trying to network, it was like attending these events. And then, someone from BAYCAT was like, hey, Maha, you had mentioned this during week 3 that you were very interested in this company. So and so works there. Do you mind if I come and connect you? And they would like pull me aside and introduce me. And so there was like all these reaffirming moments at BAYCAT and like mentorship where they truly believed in me and everyone, and really just like pushed us forward. And they were like, you said that you wanted to get to this point, so here are the tools, right? Let me be the direct access, right? Like, let me provide that resource for you. And even like, for instance, like my first day at BAYCAT, I had like my arms crossed, like total resting face, right? And Billy had called me out and she was like, Maha, she's like, I want you to present yourself in a way that like that feels like you. And she's like, if this feels like you, by all means. And I was like, no, like I feel completely nervous, I feel uncomfortable. And she's like, then relax, like this is a safe space. And so that kind of like consistently, I have that in the back of my mind everywhere I go, where I'm like, okay, like let me not have my arms crossed, right? When I feel uncomfortable, let me take a moment, breathe. And then on top of that, like professional development, they really helped me. So yeah.
I think what BAYCAT has, I guess what I take from BAYCAT is like, I guess speaking my truth was one big thing for me, because like I am a very shy person and sometimes like I don't speak up for myself, and BAYCAT really taught me that, like with all the mentors, like all the studio team, like, if you have something to say, you need to speak up. Otherwise, like no one's going to hear you, especially like if you need help, like, a lot of times like you want to be known as like, oh, I know how to do everything, but then you just kind of act on it, but then it's not good for you because then it ends up like hurting you in the end. So you have to reach out to people and be like, hey, like I need help with this and that. Can you help me? Can you teach me? And they were very open about that. And even like now, sometimes like if we have a question, they're always open to listen, And I think that's what BAYCAT has definitely helped me a lot with my confidence and speaking out for myself and things that I believe in, especially like working in such a big agency sometimes, like not trying to stay silent and to actually have my voice heard. So
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I guess that really leads me into my next question here. So how can creatives who are, going into these industries that may not be, super diverse or super inclusive, how can creatives within the industry advocate for more inclusive stories to be told, or, to show inclusivity within their media that they're releasing within the company?
I can go ahead. I think that's something that I'm currently trying to work on myself and figure out like how can I be um, kind of that voice to increase the inclusivity within our work at our company. So it's definitely a learning process that I've been trying to act on more. So one thing that you can do is like reach out to the head of talent and see if they have any type of like diversity and inclusion groups, or see if they have like any town hall meetings where you can kind of bring these topics up without being too, without like pushing it too much, I would say, since you, like most of us are in entry level roles. But yeah, it's definitely a learning process, but try to talk to your coworkers and see if there's any type of groups within the company that you can kind of create that safe space and bring the issues up, or bring up those topics, and then kind of work from there.
We just did this at my agency recently, and I think it's a big step. Some people don't do it, some people do. Ask your company to release the data. Who's being hired for what roles? What do they identify as? Where are they from? And I think numbers don't lie, so we could have the honest conversation there if we just see it. I think that's the first step. And then once you see certain areas lacking, then that's when you could advocate for someone within your network that will increase the diversity at your agency or your company. Because a lot of the times when you want people of your own to be hired, it puts this very uncomfortable situation where companies just hire based off color, not off talent. But when you see in certain categories where things are certainly lacking and you could vouch for someone in your network that has these skills, that person is hired for their skills and they were considered because of their diversity. If it's just a diversity hire, it breaks the system even more. Because it's speaking for me personally, like I work in Portland. Portland is a bit like predominantly white. So our Black community within the agency, it's really hard to like readjust to that life. So when folks feel like a diversity hire, they pack their bags and go. And it's very understood. But once you start realizing the skills and the benefits of having those folks in, it does a lot. And then you could reach out to networks like BAYCAT or any other mentorship programs where you see talent there that necessarily, I'm pretty sure we can mention, ad agencies don't really look in different places. It's usually from portfolio schools, or it's a very small network they look at for talent. So that would be my approach to it.
I think for me, it's just like having those difficult conversations when you see things that aren't right, I guess. Because sometimes, like, well, yeah, like advertising can be very white and predominantly like men. And sometimes, like, when you're the only person in the room, like, you have to speak up and you have to say something, because like it can affect, like I said earlier, your client, your company, your coworkers, and you. And I think that's definitely something, like having those difficult conversations that have to do with like any civil rights issues that are currently happening, because like our company started doing this thing called Courageous Conversations, where like we'll each talk about like, like our background, and kind of like let people know like how it's like for people of color. And at first for me, it was kind of uncomfortable because I'm a very private person, but at the same time I realized like, no, I actually need to share my story so people can understand what goes through my head when I see content that I don't feel is right, And so I think like that's why it's important to just speak up. And also like sometimes you never know, like if you speak up, there's someone else who's thinking that way too, that will back you up and be like, hey, like I was thinking the same thing and I think we should talk about this and we need to change it, and then eventually becomes a group of you. And that's the nice thing about it. And luckily, like my company doesn't like ostracize you for it. They're like, no, we need to have these conversations and thank you for speaking up. So I think that's why it's important to, I guess, like have these difficult conversations, even if you're the only one.
Right, I agree. I agree with what everyone has said. I also think it's important to um, protect your energy. I think there are some spaces that um, may not be susceptible or understanding or willing to listen, and so um, that is a that is a moment where you have to identify if this is a place worth contributing, putting your time towards. I think uh, yeah, having those difficult conversations, figuring out who you can speak to, who are your advocates and your sponsors, who also too in your position, who could you advocate for? So are there other interns that you, or like for me, are there interns that I can advocate for? Is there, um, what can I do to help make this space feel more represented? And then what are the tangible uh, like points or things that I can change within or bring up or suggest. Yeah, but I part of me also thinks it's important to be being very specific when holding people accountable and also protecting your own energy in doing that same. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like every single angle. I love that you all have kind of your different ways of envisioning the situations and kind of going about it. And I personally really like what you said about protecting your energy because I feel like we're all such like passionate creatives that it's like, yeah, like we want to tell and we want to, share our experience, but then also like at the same time that can also be really draining for some folks. So I really like that. And that kind of also leads me into the next question, which is I know personally, especially like before BAYCAT and something I'm still working on is definitely dealing with like imposter syndrome, when it comes to making resumes, interviewing, especially during this time with the pandemic, can definitely escalate some of those things because there are limited jobs, people aren't really opening up production, and I know it's new for everyone, but I guess just in a general sense, what is some advice that you have for some creatives that are looking for their job search, more specifically involving like imposter syndrome, or even resumes slash interviewing, just any kind of advice.
I'll start. One, you know yourself better than anyone else. I think it's always important to like like your achievements, your best self. If you had to if you were in a room by yourself and had to look in a mirror and say, reaffirm yourself, you would be able to be like, I did this, I did that. Um and I think it's transferring that and packaging it to on a paper. So for instance, a resume, for me, it was very, I when I'm writing my resume or when I first started doing it, I constantly would have to think like, what did I do? Like why? And then I would have to like step away from it and like really think about like where I want to see myself. Um, what am I manifesting towards? And it but also too I think there's also that like gray line where like there's a lot of imposter syndrome, there's a lot of fear, and so maybe even going to the people closest to you so they can reaffirm that, right, like your closest friends, your family, your mentors, and kind of having them explain like what are the top three things that you think I really excel at, and like creating that internal list, right, and then like writing it down. um I think, but also too, I think Samson said it best. You need to early on, like you need to be yourself, right? So it's not necessarily crafting this new Maha identity for your employers. It's like, what can I offer? What can I contribute? Because like my mind is valuable, and all of our minds are valuable. but how will I make sure that this isn't far from my true identity, my true self, right? So yeah, believe in yourself, but also reach out to the people around you. Informational interviews are like my go-tos.
Yeah, I think that's really important, having those close people you can count on for those affirmations. I remember when I was applying, when I was like even considering to apply this job, I think I talked to Katie, and I explained to her, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready like to apply for this role. Like, I, was telling myself that I wasn't qualified, and then as soon as I said that, like every day, Liz, Katie, Genevieve, Jose, like everyone was like, no, you're applying to this job. Like, you have to do it. Every day they were asking me like, did you apply? Did you apply? And so I finally did. And I think that's, I needed that push, because if I wouldn't have um, told them what I was feeling, I would have just let the opportunity go. So yeah, having those people that can affirm those things for you. And also, I think with the job search is to like never stop creating in any form or way. Like, always find ways to express your creativity, and utilize all these small things that you've done to your benefit. And you might not know what these companies are looking for. Like, if they see you doing like outside projects aside from what you normally do, like that's a positive thing. Like, everyone's gonna want to know more about that thing that you're doing on the side. So just never stop creating, and yeah, have those people to give you those positive affirmations.
Yeah, that's really awesome, and that's really great advice. I think it's really nice to hear, as someone personally who's going to start going into some entry-level positions. But also, I'm sure that our viewers really enjoyed hearing that too, because I know I did. And then another question, kind of involving that a little bit, but I know confidence was one thing that you all mentioned as something that you all kind of took away from BAYCAT and community. But on the skill side, what kind of skills do you feel that you grew at BAYCAT? This could be like, communication skills, technical skills, or however you would like to perceive it. How did those skills help you in your new current positions?
If I could jump in, I think the client relationship you have at BAYCAT, because you're actually working with real clients, this like real nonprofits with real goals. And I think that practice of its own has like definitely kept me rooted now. Like I work on the Nike account now, which is a very big account, and it's a lot of direct communication, and a lot of folks are important. But when I view them no different than the clients I worked with at BAYCAT. You know what I mean? Like, I think I learned that very early on, that you need everyone that steps in a room when you're in a partnership together. It's this respect of, these are our ideas, can you do them? Let's work it out together. And that really stuck with me. And it's kind of something I miss too, because especially when it's a nonprofit or a smaller client, it's such a intimate building of a project. And I'm pretty sure some of these people on the call, when you work with these bigger clients, it's such a big machine working. So you lose some of those interpersonal things you had at BAYCAT. But I think the client relationship factors, things that goes miles ahead of time, especially because you're talking to like the founder of the nonprofit, most of the time. So that'd be it for me.
I think for me, I guess more of like a technical one would be like organization for like editing. So like when I was at BAYCAT, I went through the editing route, and I mean, I knew how to edit, but like not to but I had my own way of how I did things. And the way that BAYCAT taught us how to organize like all of our files, all of our video files and things like that, like that's basically like standard, like and it helps you later on in the future, because especially like if you have an editor, they're like, hey, I need you to I need this and that, where is it? And sometimes editors can lose sight of things, and you're like, oh, they're right here, like, you know, like here are all these clips that you needed, you know, like, and so it makes it easier for you and for them. And that's like a technical one that I definitely like learned from BAYCAT. But also like, I guess like being, I guess like also communication skills and like networking with people, like that's another big thing that I learned through BAYCAT, was like, you know, like speaking up and talking to people. Like you never know who you can work with like later on in the future, because like Maha said, like when we would go to like networking events or go to different companies for like going and to check out, like you never know, like you might see them later on and you can be like, oh hey, like I was here with BAYCAT like a few months ago, now I work here, like, you know, maybe then they'll remember you and you'll imprint something, you know. Or like even with your coworkers, if you like get into like working for like a media company, like you can network with them and you can work with side projects with them that they can later like help you on if you want to work on anything in the future, and you have people that you trust, you know. So I think that's another thing.
Yeah. And I'll also add that for me, well, I learned a ton of technical, like editing, design, which is really cool. But I think what helped me, and I see it now as I'm like in my current role, is like like at BAYCAT, they truly wanted us to be intentional of messaging and really refining our story. So I was on the producer track and just like really identifying like what is the story trying to tell? What is it that what are the reasons as to why we included certain shots or certain interviews, or what or shows that we like, that what are the reasons as to why we like our shows, right? And like the contents that we watch. And so that helped me refine my taste as well, and just like doing my own personal research as to what stories I want to see, and my definition of a good story.
Yeah, I definitely think that one thing that, you know, BAYCAT has taught me personally, kind of the same thing, is just organizing, you know, seeing far into the future, you know, thinking about possibilities and where you can go, and giving you that confidence. So I guess to kind of go back, a little throwback here to that kind of mindset from BAYCAT, I have one more question. And it's kind of, where do you see yourself now in 10 years? Where do you guys want to be? What do you want to be doing? What stories do you want to be telling? It's a loaded question, but I think that it would be really awesome to hear.
10 years. Like barely can figure out 1 year. Just kidding. I mean, I guess ultimately I want to be a development exec, or 10 years. I'm like, that's really far, I think. Yeah, either a development executive or I want to own my own production company. I want to be multi-hyphenate, run the show, and the stories that I'm most, interested in seeing are stories, love YA, and I also love Afrofuturism and science fiction. So if I could do the best of both worlds, I'd be super happy. So yeah.
I'll make sure to apply to your production company once that happens. But yeah, I agree. 10 years is a long time, but I ultimately want to get into the music and entertainment industry. I have a passion for working with artists and kind of helping them foster their creative visions. So yeah, hopefully I'm working within the music industry somehow, and combining my passion for music and video into one.
I guess for me, like I definitely want to go back into journalism, especially like doing media journalism. I definitely want to try to either like work for like KQED, like AJ Plus, or if not, like make my own like community news media group, because I feel like since I love journalism and I love newspaper journalism, but it's kind of a little bit dying, and I definitely want to share stories visually and kind of share stories like I guess share people's voices, I guess, and definitely want to go back to that.
For me, I would say I would want to transition into the film world. Definitely on the just writing, directing, and producing as well too. I think one thing that's like, just one thing I know for sure, I'm really trying to make things on my own without like investors, or if it's on our own, it's like a collective with people that come from the same world I come from. Because someone mentioned it on the call, I feel like a lot of people have profited on stories they never relate with. So in 10 years, hopefully on my end, the only profit from stories that relate to us should be for us and by us. So that would be my goal in 10 years, or where I see myself at.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know I just met you guys, but I'm holding all of you guys to your goals. You guys are going to do it. It's going to be awesome. I'm excited.
Jordan,
I love accountability.
Yes, love accountability, but also want to open up the space to you because I'm all about manifestation. And where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Okay, I asked this question, but I was not ready to answer it myself. Ooh, that's a good question.
No pressure.
I also really want to, open my own production company. But until that point, I definitely want to be editing like some horror films. I'm a huge fan of Jordan Peele's, so like a huge goal if I could, direct Us 2 or Get Out 2 or like whatever else he brings into the atmosphere here, I would cry. That would be awesome. So definitely editing. That's be some feature length film editor. So we're getting close here, but I am gonna ask a bonus question. So there are some creatives that, like myself, like before BAYCAT, I had never had like an actual paying like industry job / internship. Do any of you have some advice about, folks who are coming maybe from like food industry or retail, and how some of those skills, even though they're not directly industry skills, how that can be applied to some things that are asked of in the industry?
I think I can speak off of my own experience working in retail. I worked at Apple for like 3 years while I was in school. And I think like any retail job, I feel like everyone should work a retail job because you really learn how to build those communication skills, having to deal with some people that you prefer not to have to deal with. But yeah, seeing it in that way where it's like you can figure out what you personally gain from that job or from that experience, whether it's like working in the restaurant industry or retail industry, and like being that voice to leverage those skills for yourself. Like make sure like whenever you have an interview or you're writing it on your resume, like really polishing it in a way that people will see that it's a great asset to your overall skills.
I think those skills in retail jobs are super important. I also worked at Apple. I worked at like a clothing store, and San Francisco is so expensive, so I think I was doing this at the same time. And then before that, I was working at a movie theater. So all these little things like I had interest in, so I would benefit from the job Like I loved watching films. I was really hyped up about clothes. And then I really need a laptop. So I was like, I'm gonna work at Apple and get a laptop. So these are things that like individually, I kind of made them into my goal. You know what I mean? Like I knew there was things I wanted to do, and within these skills, there was still little passion points. Like it was a retail job, but like I got to watch all the movies I wanted, so I could be like, oh yeah, through this job, I was exposed to all this. Like, just because it's in this like retail bracket, it doesn't mean it's not as insightful as a like a corporate job, you know? Because I feel like at these places, it's such a it's a different community sense, and you learn a lot more about yourself than like the company or anything of that nature. So I'd say just talk about what you benefited from the job individually, and it'll take you a pretty long way in my eyes.
Amen to that. Yeah, awesome. Well, we are getting here close to our time here. But I lied again. This is not a question more so as it is like a request. If you all have any kind of last wisdom you would love to drop to our audience here, it can be about anything. I would love to hear it.
I know Maha has something to say. I could just tell.
Joyce?
I guess one thing that I know that I dealt with was like, especially like imposter syndrome. But one thing that I told myself is like, I would always feel like I'm very lucky to be here. I'm very lucky to be here. And it took me a while to finally think about like, no, like I deserve to be here because I worked my ass off to work to be here. Like I went to school, I worked crazy jobs, I did freelance. Like I deserve to be here as much as anyone else that's here. Like, cause, or even more than some of the people that are here, you know, like I didn't come from, like, I didn't go to film school or anything, but I'm trying to learn and I'm trying to progress, you know, and you should never feel like you're lucky to be in a space. You deserve to be there. So
Amen to that. Well, awesome. I just want to say thank you guys so much for being here. It's been really awesome talking with you guys, and it's also been really inspiring, you know, for me personally, being an intern. I'm like, the light at the end of the tunnel, like seeing how well you guys are doing and seeing how you guys have, you know, taken your creative passions and drives and all of that and taken it from BAYCAT and then moved on to do amazing things. I'm like, it might be possible for me. So it's awesome. So thank you guys so much. And I just want to give one more shout out to our sponsors. Thank you so much for sponsoring these events for us. And it's going to be a shout out to Tomorrow's Black Joy Digital Art Gallery, Dolby, Nuri Collective. Nuri Collective is who we're donating any donations, who we gotten RSVPs for, and Felzine as well. So thank you all, and thank you audience for coming in. And I'm so excited to see what else you all do in the future. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks, Jordan. You've
Thanks,
been
Jordan.
such a great host. We love BAYCAT. All love the people who come from BAYCAT or out of BAYCAT.
Yeah, once you're in BAYCAT, it's like you're automatically family. So I think everyone should feel free to like reach out to us and if they have any other questions. Also, shout out to Neil for handling all the tech support on this.
Yes, thank you. Oh, Genevieve.
Hi, y'all. Hi, y'all.